Gospel of John chapter 10, verses 9, 10, and 11. Jesus is speaking here. Jesus says, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out, and find pasture. The thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. I want to preach for a little while about the good life. The good life. As we are now in the countdown to the Easter holiday, or to the Easter celebration, where we celebrate not only the death, not only the suffering, not only the burial, but we celebrate our resurrected Savior. Christianity is different from every other religion that there is, in that every other religion is built off of the legacy or the founding of someone or some idea that is dead. And they're no longer here. They lived, but they are no longer here. But Christianity is different in that Christianity is founded not on the life of its originator, but Christianity rests on the death of Jesus. What do you mean, Pastor Cook? Were it not for the sacrifice of Jesus' life, there would be no reason for us to come to church. Had Jesus not died, you could still be in your bed this morning, sleeping or watching whatever you'd like to watch. But because he did, it has given all of us an occasion, a reason to get out of our bed on this gloomy Sunday morning to tell God thank you. Not just thank you for this day, not just thank you for this new opportunity, not just thank you for provision, not just thank you for what you've done, but thank you because you died. And the reason that we should always have an attitude of gratitude is because had he not died, we would still live under the law. And so I thought to myself, as we are on this road to resurrection, all of us celebrate so much about Jesus. We celebrate the fact that Jesus is a healer. We celebrate the fact that Jesus will provide when you need it. We celebrate the fact that he may not come when you want him to come, but he's always on time. But there is another aspect of the life of Jesus, of the ministry of Jesus, that has somewhere been forgotten. And it's found here in this Gospel of John when Jesus says, listen, I've come that you might have life, and that you might have life more abundantly. Each of us this morning has a self-designed definition of the good life. The good life being that state of existence where everything within our world is aligned in such a perfect way that we would have no complaints. For many, the good life is a life free from financial worries, filled with extravagant possessions, and all of their free time is spent traveling the world and making random appearances with President Obama. Can't you see them? Some people have mentally checked out already thinking about the good life. How comfortable it would be to be on a private jet headed somewhere where it seems like the sun never goes down. For some, the good life is having power or prestige, being in charge with people and things at their command. So obsessed with popularity that they get just a few likes on Instagram and Facebook, and they've now become more of a local celebrity than who they really are. Others would suggest that the good life is simply being satisfied with what one already has. Not desiring more or settling for less, but simply being happy no matter what. But my brothers and my sisters, sadly, somewhere within these marginally compartmentalized worldly theories of good life, Christians have lost sight of the source of all goodness. This past week, my wife made vegetable soup, and all of the ingredients were fresh, Deacon Johnson. They were just bursting with flavor. And I immediately asked her where she purchased the vegetables from, and she said Publix. And my reply was, man, Publix has some good vegetables. Forgetting that Publix bought the vegetables from a farmer who harvested them. The farmer had the vegetables because he planted seeds in the ground. The land in which the seed was planted was also supported by both rain and sunshine. Rain and sunshine are dependent upon heaven. Rain from heaven must come down upon the land in which the seed has been planted so that the fruit or the vegetable can sprout. So the farmer can deliver it to the grocery store so that we can pick it up and go shopping. And then when we get home, we can make some good soup. The grocery store is simply the mechanism of delivery. Now, if God stops the sunshine and God stops the rain, then that means that there can be no replication of the seed. And that means that if God does not allow there to be rain, that then the land cannot be fruitful and there would be no reason to make a trip to the grocery store. And too many Christians have forgotten that Jesus is the source of the good life. Publix is not the source of vegetables. Publix is not even the place where vegetables are made. It's just a place where they are sold. And too often in life, we enter the marketplace of the world trying to find the good life. Too often in life, we water down ourselves trying to attain a level of happiness that is not designed for the Christian. And then we wonder why we are dissatisfied, why we are unhappy, why we never find peace in life. It's all because you're seeking the good life from the bad place. Wish I had myself a witness in here. Look at verse number 9 this morning. Jesus says, I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be what? Saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. First thing I want to share with you this morning about the good life is that it can only be obtained through Jesus. The real good life begins with salvation. Somebody say salvation this morning. Isn't it amazing that the world has invested so much in making the non-believer think that life ends for them the moment they become saved? It's not by accident that when the preacher extends the invitation and your heart tells your feet to move, and then your mind interjects and says, if you walk down that aisle, you can't turn up anymore. You'll be giving up on your weekends. You'll be giving up on everything that excites you. And if that's not enough, it tells you you're not ready for that yet. You'll be a hypocrite. Now is not the time. You remember what you were doing just 4 or 5 hours ago. You need to sit down somewhere. This is not the walk you need to make. I can't help but wonder on this Sunday morning how many people are struggling right now because they refuse to accept Jesus. Oh, my brothers and sisters, there's someone in here that can testify if your life ceased the moment you became saved. If you became boring the moment you gave your life to Christ, then you ain't doing it right. There's someone that can testify that their life did not end when they gave God their hand. There's someone that can testify that they've not been asleep in the house every weekend since they've gotten saved. There's somebody that can testify they watch more than TBN and the Word Network. There's some Scandal fans and some Empire fans in here. There's someone that can testify that the moment you give your life to God is not a death sentence, but it is a life sentence. That life began to become better, that you began to enjoy aspects of your life that you didn't even know existed, because when you found the Lord, you found yourself. I wish I had somebody that could help me preach right along in here, because there are so many people who refuse to give their life to the Lord because they say, preacher, I'm not done living yet. Might I suggest to you this morning, the reason some people are not living the good life right now is because they never have peace in their life. Preach, Pastor Cook. I believe I will this morning. When Jesus says, if you enter in by me, notice the text. He says, you shall go in and out and find what? Pasture. Jesus is saying, I am the doorway to peace. This was a common Jewish phrase. If a man could go in and out without difficulty or danger, it meant he was safe and secure. And what Jesus is saying to you this morning is when you give me your life, you will discover peace. He's not saying you won't have trouble. He's not saying you won't have difficulty. Watch this. He's not saying all of your bills will be paid. He's not saying everybody will be nice to you. Everybody will say nice things about you. But what he is saying is that when they curse you out, you'll be able to say, God bless you anyhow. I know some of you are still working on that this morning. I know you were tested just yesterday. It's all right. Keep on keeping on. He did not say that you would not have financial difficulties, but what he did say is that even when the lights get turned off, you still can sing that little familiar song, that this little light of mine. Oh, I feel like preaching this morning. That I'm going to let it shine. He is not saying that everything is going to go the way that you want it to go, but he is saying it's going to go the way that you need it to go. Because if the truth be told, if everything went the way that you wanted it to go, you wouldn't be sitting here right now. If everything went the way that you wanted it to go, you wouldn't be married to who you're married to. You wouldn't have the children that you have. You wouldn't work where you work. You probably wouldn't even work at all. But thanks be unto God that God knows how to take our will and ignore our wants and give us what we need. Because the truth of the matter is, if the Lord had not given you what you needed, you would be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs by now. Had the Lord bent and gave you what you wanted, you might not even be alive today. But the Lord looked beyond your faults. The Lord looked beyond your immature wants, and he gave you not only what you needed, but he gave you what your children needed. He gave you what your household needed. He gave you what your sisters and your brothers needed. And there ought to be somebody in this place on this Sunday morning that can thank God that God knows how to give you what you need. The reason some of us never obtain peace is because our ideal of the good life derives from peace that comes from man. What do you mean? Some of us are in here this morning and we say things to ourselves like, if I can just pay this bill, then I can rest. Somebody ought to testify this morning. Someone can testify that a paid bill doesn't keep us from creating a new bill. Yeah. And what happens is that we focus so much on that one area of our life that we forget the other areas of our life. The unpaid bill is not the problem. The person who keeps making these bills they can't pay is the problem. Which means if you think peace is going to come from paying one thing, well, once you pay that off, what happens when you acquire the next thing? Some people in here think that if they can just get more money, that they will have peace because then they can have what they want. But there's somebody that can testify the more money you get, the more problems there are. Oh, my brothers and my sisters, if it's not temptation, it's those three letters everybody hates to see together, the IRS. Somebody ought to talk back to the preacher this morning. Some of us think that if we can just get another job, then everything would change in our lives. Well, a new career is not the answer to somebody who can't get to work on time, who can't complete the first assignment, who can't work well with others. You're just on one job on your way to the next. And what Jesus is saying to us this morning, if you really want to live the good life, you better put your life in my hands. Because the world is ever changing, but the Lord remains the same. Because there's somebody that can testify that friends, yes, even the best of friends, BFFs, friends for life, my ace boon coon, my day one, my A1 since day one, that those people can change. And there's somebody that can testify that people who will smile with you today will fight against you tomorrow. But oh, it's good news to know in this ever-changing world that we serve a God that no matter where we are, he remains the same. That even when we're bad to God, he's good to us. That even when we do wrong by him, he does right by us. Oh, that's a real good place to have a Baptist fit this morning because all of us are in here as the divine beneficiaries of God's grace and his mercy. I hate to burst your bubble this morning, but it's not because you're so great. It's not because you're so fine. It's not because you're so right, but it's by the grace of God. And oh, my brothers and my sisters, I feel real preachy right here. I think we all need to take a moment to thank God for his grace, to thank God for his mercy, to thank God for his kindness. Another reason that people don't live the good life is because they lack spiritual nourishment. Jesus says they will find pasture. Now, when Jesus says they will find pasture, he's not saying that they will just find a field. But Jesus is saying they will have provision. Oh, somebody ought to say provision. There's some words we hear in church that ought to excite us this morning. The pasture represents not only a place of rest and protection for a sheep, but it also provides food for the sheep. Now watch this. Jesus says that they are able to come in and out of the pasture as they please, but it's up to them to eat when they get in the pasture. Some people go to church every Sunday somewhere and watch church on TV all week, and they still are not nourished. They're not eating God's word. They're not living God's word, but rather they are just standing in the pasture. Yeah, this here is a pasture this morning, and I want you to know everybody ain't grazing this morning. Yeah, some folks sitting in here because their spouse kicked them until they got up this morning. Get to the house of the Lord. Some folk are in here because the children didn't go to sleep last night, and so they were up anyhow. So they said, let's go on to church while we're still up. But how many of you know that if you come to God's house and you feast on his word and you feast on his being, that old familiar hymn will come true, that there is now something on the inside that's working on the outside of me. When you feast in the pasture, there ought to be some change in your life. I never shall forget being in the park with Marcus some years ago, and someone was having a birthday party, and we were playing on the outside of their party. We were playing right on the edge of where all of their entertainment was, and Marcus would play with some of the children that kind of deviated from the party. We were out there playing so long, Deacon Jenkins, that I guess Marcus thought that we were part of the birthday party. We didn't know the children. In fact, they were Hispanic and nobody hardly spoke English. And when it was time to eat, all of the children went running to the food. And I want you to know Marcus was running right there with them. And I was behind him, Deacon Richardson. I was trying to catch him. Marcus come back, but he was already in line to eat, waiting to eat. And my boy can eat. And I said to him, son, this is not our party. We've got to go back over here. And one of the adults said, you know what? It's okay. He can have whatever he like. Would you all like some too? And I really wanted some because it smelled real good. But I said, no, if you'll just give him some, that'll be fine. Thank you so very much. You're so kind. And I want you to know, when we were walking away, Deacon Davenport, Marcus and I sat down on the bench, and as I was fixing his hot dog and getting his food together, I bit his hot dog, and Marcus said, hey, Daddy, that's not your food. That's my food. If you want some, you got to go over there. And I thought to myself, well, he's telling the truth. They offered me something to eat, and I said no. And now here I am sitting here trying to eat the baby's food. And oh, my brothers and my sisters, that's how God's house is. That's how salvation is. God is saying to everybody in here, listen, you don't have to look at what I'm doing in your neighbor's life. You don't have to look at what I've done for somebody else. If you want it, it's right here for the taking. If you need it, it's right here for the taking. And God is trying to tell somebody in here, if you're going to come to the pasture, don't just come and stand around. Don't just come and sit down. Don't just come and get in the way. But if you're going to be here, you might as well get nourished while you're here. You might as well eat while you're here. You might as well rest while you're here. Is there anybody in the house this morning that can testify that you will nourish in the pasture? Yeah. Look at verse number 10. Lord, I feel like preaching this morning. I ought to take most Sundays off. I feel like preaching now. Verse number 10 says, the thief cometh not, oh my God, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. Listen, if you grew up in a house with anybody who really went to church, you have heard this all your life. They didn't come in at verse number 9. They didn't finish verse number 10. You probably never even heard verse 11. But everybody in here who grew up in a godly household has heard somebody say that the devil comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. The second thing I want to share with you this morning about the good life is everyone doesn't want you to obtain it. I think I'll say that again. I want to tell you again, the second thing about a good life is that everyone does not want you to have it. Too many people have been deceived this morning. What do you mean, Pastor Cook? You've convinced yourself that you need to be rich to obtain the good life, that you need an education, a better career, when Jesus is clearly informing us that those can be temporary doors to permanent destruction. The main reason some people don't live the good life is because they are surrounded by thieves and don't even know it. The sad thing about these thieves is that some of the thieves that are in your life are there because you invited them there. Oh, I think I ought to have some witnesses in here. I ought to be in good company. This morning, the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And so then the question must be asked as a believer, if I am not living the good life right now, who has stolen from me? That's a very good question to ask this morning. It amazes me when I counsel young people. One of the common responses I receive is, Pastor, I'm just trying to live my life right now. They don't understand that all life flows from God. God has given us goodness. God has given us joy, natural joy. And sometimes we've invited people in our life that every time we get up a little bit, they pull us right back down. What do you mean, Pastor Cook? You can never have a mountain experience. What is a mountain experience? A mountain experience is when God has set you so high that you can't even acknowledge that you cannot ignore that God has not elevated you. You cannot even ignore that God has been good to you. And there are some people that as soon as you get to the top of the mountain, they want to see you at the foot of the mountain. And so for that reason, they give you bad advice. They discourage you. They never celebrate you. You never do anything right for them, but you ought to look at them and say, the devil is alive this morning, but God has been good to me. I am not perfect, but I thank God that I'm not as messed up as I used to be. I may not have everything that I want. I may not be what you want me to be, but I thank God that I am what I am. And the reason I say sometimes we have invited thieves in our life, because how many times have we entered discouraging situations and it was nobody's fault but ours? Preaching this place, Pastor Cook. How many times have we made the wrong decision knowingly, and then when it's time to deal with the consequences of our wrong decision, we try to look for somebody else to blame? Oh, I wish I had a few witnesses in here that would be real this morning. The enemy comes to steal, and by steal, what it means is that he's taking something from you that's yours. And everybody in here, God has promised you peace. And if you don't have peace this morning, the enemy has stolen it from you. But there is good news. Anything stolen can be returned. And God has sent me here to tell you that everything that the enemy stole from you, if you want it back, is here right now. God is saying to you, stop weeping, stop crying, stop complaining, stop fussing, stop being bitter over what has been stolen from you. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Put on your war clothes. Let's march into enemy territory and take it back. Now, some people can't celebrate that because they know not only what was taken, but they know who took it, and they don't have any power. They're afraid to go into enemy territory. But let me give you a little strength this morning for your journey. If God be for you, who can be against you? And I'm here to tell you that there's no demon, that there's no evil, that there's no thief that is stronger than our God. Oh, my brothers and my sisters, when I think about how strong God is, when I consider how mighty God is, when I consider how he's got all power in his hand, you ought not be afraid of any devil in hell. You ought not be afraid of any devil on earth, but you ought to be able to look at them and say that no weapon formed against me shall be able to prosper. Here it is. Take a look at where our world is now. Everything we celebrate brings us closer to moral bankruptcy. I looked on the news last night, and our children think it's funny now to get in large fights and post videos on Facebook and WorldStar, knowing now that if you post it, you're going to get arrested. But the fear of jail does not even move them. It does not even resonate within them. If they can just have those 15 seconds of fame. Look at us this morning, how we'll do anything for money, for power, thinking that that's the way to the good life, not even knowing that we are losing ourselves on the way to prosperity. God is saying to us this morning in verse 11, he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. It's amazing to me how we praise celebrities in today's society. Oh, we'll line up and wait for hours in the rain and cold for a concert that the tickets were $200 to, and that person will get on stage and perform a lip sync for 15 minutes. And we'll jump up and down like we don't know that's the same thing you just got done listening to in the car. But then we'll come to church on Sunday morning, late, preaching here, Pastor Cook, I know it. Give $2, want the preacher and the choir to yell till they're blue in the face. But Jesus is the good shepherd that gave his life for the sheep. Might I share with you my last thing about the good life this morning? Everybody has access to it. Somebody say everybody this morning. I love the fact that we serve an everybody type of God. What do you mean we serve an everybody type of God? We serve a God that even if the world says we are nobody, that even if nobody else celebrates you, if everybody else excludes you, that we serve a God that no matter where you are, he will include you. We've got an everybody type God. That's the reason why all of us can be in here at the same time with different dirt, with different levels of comfort, with different educational backgrounds. It's not because any one of us is more important than the next. It's because we serve an everybody type God. And if you know you serve an everybody type God, my question is, why can't you love everybody? Preach, Pastor Cook, preach in this place. I believe I will. Why can't you love everybody? You know how it is. You only want to fool with certain folk. Oh, stay right there, Pastor Cook. I believe I will. That's evident by the folk you invite to church. Yeah, you'll invite the neighbor on the right side of you to church because they got a little sense. You know, they act good, they talk good. You'll invite them to church, but you won't invite the neighbor on the other side of church because every now and then you smell some strange herbs coming from their house. Oh, I wish I had some witnesses in here. Somebody can't testify because you're that neighbor on the left. But we've got to learn how to love everybody and to treat everybody the same, because how can you serve an everybody God and die and get to an everybody heaven and then see somebody that you didn't like down here? That is hypocrisy. But if you can't love everybody down here, then you can't live with everybody over there. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. My brothers and my sisters, I hurry to a close this morning. The old preacher could make a full sermon off the first two words in this sentence. Jesus says, I am. And the old preacher would tell us this morning, everybody in here ought to have an I am statement about the Lord. There's somebody in here that can testify that Jesus is whatever you need him to be. Oh, this is a real good place for the roll call this morning, because somebody needs to know that Jesus is a healer. Somebody needs to know that Jesus is a provider. Somebody needs to know that Jesus is a burden bearer. Somebody needs to know that he is a heavy load sharer. Somebody needs to know that the Lord is everything that we need. If more people understood that, then perhaps more people would praise him this morning. Here it is as I hurry on to a close. I'm glad this morning that everyone has access to the good life. The story is told of Mr. Yates, who owned a farm in Texas during the Great Depression. When the Depression came and he was having trouble keeping up with his payments on his farm, the bank began to press Mr. Yates and gave him 30 days to pay back his payments or face foreclosure. Well, after 3 weeks, with 3 weeks left to go, a man came to Mr. Yates' door. He worked for an oil company, and he said, I want you to give this company a lease to drill on your farm for oil. Mr. Yates said, well, I was going to lose the farm anyway, so what good could it hurt? Well, the oil company did drill, and they hit a gusher. 82,000 barrels of oil a day. And Mr. Yates immediately became a multimillionaire many times over. Now, there's a question on the floor. Exactly when did Mr. Yates become a millionaire? Did Mr. Yates become a millionaire when the oil company struck oil? Or did Mr. Yates become a millionaire when he bought the farm? Mr. Yates was a millionaire the moment that he purchased the farm, but he lived in poverty because he did not know what was underneath the ground. When you come to faith in Jesus Christ as your personal sin bearer, the moment you came to faith, you were blessed with the opportunity to live the good life. Preaching this place, Pastor Cook, and there are many people that are living spiritually poor, that are living spiritually defeated, spiritually weak, and spiritually anemic lives, even while sitting on top of all of this wealth, because we don't know what's down on the inside of us. But oh, my brothers and my sisters, I'm so glad this morning that there in verse number 11 that Jesus informs us that I am the good shepherd. I wish I had a witness in here. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. It was not enough for Jesus to be just a shepherd. Oh, I feel real good this morning. But Jesus says that I am the good shepherd. Yes, he does. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. And all my brothers and my sisters, my question to all of us this morning is, are you living the good life? I know somebody wanted to say no this morning because you think that because you don't have a whole lot of money, that because you don't drive a Mercedes, or you don't live in Summer Grove, or because you don't have all of the things that you want, that you're not living the good life. But oh, my brothers and my sisters, if the good Lord woke you up this morning, you've got access to the good life. And God is trying to tell us this morning, stop trying to find the good life in the world and find the good life in me. Because the Lord said that I have come that not only should you have life, but Jesus says that you might have life more abundantly. Is there anybody here this morning that can testify this morning that not only do you have life, but since you met Jesus, that you have life more abundant? that every day has not been sunshine and rainbows, that every day has not been filled with lemon drops and kisses. But since you met Jesus, there's been a change in your life. Will you lean over this morning and high five your neighbor and say, neighbor, you can have the good life. Yes, Lord. Is there anybody here this morning that can testify that the Lord will give you all of your needs, that you have been young and now are old, but you've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor is seed begging for bread? Is there anybody here that can testify this morning that the Lord knows how to take care of his own, that the Lord knows how to provide for his own? Won't he bless you? Yes, Lord. Won't he keep you? Won't he keep on making ways out of no way? If the Lord has made ways for you, why don't you tell him thank you this morning? Yes, Lord. If the Lord has done anything for you, you ought to tell him thank you this morning. Lord, I feel real good. Take me higher. And I'm so glad this morning that we serve a God that knows how to lift us up when we've been put down. We serve a God that knows how to love us when we don't love ourselves. We serve a God that knows how to take care of his children. And I've got one question. Won't he do it? Yes, Lord. Won't he do it? Yes. Won't he pick us up? Yes, Lord. Won't he turn you and I around? Yes. Won't the Lord? Won't he come to your rescue? Won't he heal your body? Won't he pay your bills? Won't he make your enemies behave? Won't he do it? And if you know that the Lord will do it, you ought to show some signs. Yes, Lord, I'm living the good life, not because I have everything I want, but because all my needs, they are supplied. Shout yes, shout yes, shout yes. Won't he do it? Lord, I feel real good. Will you do me one favor? Lean over and high five your neighbor one last time and say, neighbor, I know he will. Yes. How do I know he will? I did not hear it. I did not see it. But I know for myself that the Lord, yes, oh, I feel real good, that the Lord, yes, he will. He'll show up right on time. Shout yes, shout yes, yes. I'm done. Everybody's standing. I'm done. The good life. The good life.